Hello everyone, welcome to my video lecture series on microcontrollers and embedded systems. In this video lecture, we are going to explain about a memory and its types, sensors and actuators. The learning outcome of this session will be the students will be able to demonstrate on different memory technologies and types. They are able to understand role of sensors and actuators and their interfacing with input-output subsystem of an embedded system. The outline. We'll see first about the memory. It is being divided into a ROM and RAM. Then sensors, actuators and IO subsystem, which are having some components like LED, 7 segment, optocouplers, relays, piezo buzzer, push button, stepper motor and keypad or a keyboard. Let us go for the first one, memory. So memory is an important part of any processor or controller. So based upon any embedded system. So the memory is used to store control algorithms. The core of an embedded system is either a processor or it may be a controller. So any processor the processors contain off-chip memory and controllers contain on-chip memory. So here we will explain about a memory used in embedded system. First one, in the below figure we can see that the memory is being divided. There are two types. It is being divided into a ROM and RAM. ROM is a read-only memory and RAM is random access memory. We will go for the first point, ROM, read-only memory, which is also called as program storage memory or program memory. So it is a program or code memory of embedded system. The ROM retains the data even after the power is turned off. That is, even though if the power supply is turned off, the data remains in the ROM chip. And this is called as a non-volatile memory. A ROM is a non-volatile memory. The ROM stores program instructions and it is classified as below from the older days to till now. So in the figure we can see that the ROM is divided into 6 different types from the beginning. So out of that, the first ROM read-only memory is being developed as MROM, which was called as MROM. MROM is a masked ROM. A masked ROM is one-time programmable device that uses a hardwired technology for storing the data. So this device is factory programmed by masking and metallization process at the time of production itself. So once the firmware is ready by the user to freeze, then it is given to MROM fabricator, the factory. The limitation is that once the MROM is manufactured, then the data cannot be modified. So here a programmer or a developer writes his program, and if he wants to store that program in a memory in earlier days, in the beginning days, he has to give that code to the manufacturer, and manufacturer fabricates MROM chip for that program. So if anything can be changed into that MROM chip, it cannot be possible. So that is why it is called as one-time programmable device. Next one is a programmable ROM. PROM, or also it is called as OTP, one-time programmable. So unlike MROM, OTP or PROM is not pre-programmed by the manufacturer. So instead, the end user is responsible for programming these devices. This device has nichrome or polysilicon wires, so which are nothing but fuses arranged in a matrix. So these fuses are selectively burnt according to the data which a ROM programmer wants to store. So if a programmer wants to store his program, he has to burn a selected fuses. It means he is writing the data into the PROM chip. So the fuses which burned represents logic 0 and which not burned represents logic 1. So that is by default the state of this PROM is always logic 1. The limitation of this PROM is that it cannot be reprogrammed. So PROM is also similar to the MROM only, but instead of a programming in the place of manufacturer, a programmer can burn his own program by himself, but that too only one time. Next, erasable programmable ROM, EPROM. So basically PROMs are not useful and are not worth for development purpose. So if anything wants to be changed, then we cannot change in PROMs. So the PROM does not provide reprogramming. The EPROM provides flexibility to reprogram the same chip. So here we have a flexibility to reprogram. It uses a floating gate FET transistors, and information is written by programmer by charging this floating gate. So the charge is going to be stored in the floating gate. To erase the information, the EPROM contains quartz crystal window. So there will be a window on a EPROM chip. And if this window is exposed to an ultraviolet rays for a fixed duration of 20 to 30 minutes, the entire program will be erased. Then electrically erasable programmable ROM, EEPROM. This is also similar to EPROM, but instead of ultraviolet rays, electrical signals are used to erase the information. So EEPROM alters memory erase in a byte or register level. Only a selected bytes or a selected registers can be erased in EEPROM. And also in a fewer milliseconds. It is very fast to erase in EEPROM than the EPROM. Next, the development is flash program or flash memory. A flash memory is a variation of EEPROM technology only. The flash memory is organized in sectors and pages. So this also uses a floating gate MOSFETs, and erasing is done at the sector or page level, which never affects other page or other sector. It is also similar to EEPROM, but erasing option is quite different. Next, a non-volatile memory, NVRAM. This is actually a RAM, but it is involved into a ROM type, ROM category. as because it is called as non-volatile memory, and ROM is also called as non-volatile memory. So non-volatile random access memory, it is a random access memory with a battery backup. So it is based on static RAM. The memory and a minute battery packed in a single package. So in absence of external power, the battery will provide power to the memory. So it becomes a non-volatile memory. So this is about a read-only memory types and technologies. Then we will move for RAM. Random access memory. So RAM is a data memory of a processor or controller. A ROM is a code memory and RAM is a data memory. The core of an embedded system read or write data from this. So it is an intermediate memory between processor and program memory or a main memory. If the power is turned off, the all information will be erased from this device. So it is called as volatile memory. So we can volatile. So even if we remove the power supply to this chip, the information will be erased by itself. This is same as sequential access memory. That is, sequential access memory is like a CD-ROM, where a desired memory location is accessed through searching entire memory or only by seeking method. So it is classified as below figure. RAM is classified into SRAM, DRAM and NVRAM. Here the NVRAM is same as above what we have seen in the ROM types. So SRAM and DRAM. The static RAM or SRAM, which stores data in the form of voltage, and they are made up of flip-flops. SRAM is the fastest of all RAM. The implementation of SRAM with 6 transistors to build single bit cell or single memory cell is being shown up in the figure on the left side top. So here there are 6 transistors, MOS transistors are used to build a single bit SRAM. So here 4 transistors are made up of making a flip-flop to store a single bit, and 2 transistors are controlling the access, Q5 and Q6. So how it operates? To write a logic 1 into this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, first we have to make B is equal to 1, that is Q6 is, source is equal to 1, bit line B is equal to 1 and B bar equal to 0, and word line should be 1 always. So it means we are going to write the data bit 1 into this memory cell, and if you want to write logic 0 bit into this cell, make B equal to 0 and B bar equal to 1 along with word line equal to 1. So to read bit from this cell, you just have to make all the control bits equal to 1, B equal to 1, B bar equal to 1 and W equal to 1. Next, DRAM, dynamic RAM. So dynamic RAM stores data in the form of charge. So comparatively with the SRAM stores in the form of voltage and DRAM stores in the form of charge, and they are made up of MOSFET and capacitors as shown in the figure left side down. So DRAM is for high density volume of memory and low cost compared to the SRAM. So it is of very low cost. The implementation of DRAM with one transistor and one capacitor to build single bit cell or single memory cell. But the only disadvantage is that the charge stored in this capacitor gets leaked off with time, and to prevent this, that needs to be refreshed periodically. So continuously this memory cell requires a refreshing. So DRAM controller are required for refreshing. So DRAM controllers are another circuits which are going to take care of this refreshing cycles. So MOSFETs acts as an incoming and outgoing bit here. MOSFET is controlling the incoming and outgoing bit, reading and writing, and the capacitor acts as a bit storage or bit storage unit, that is storing a charge. So the difference between these two are SRAM is made up of 6 CMOS transistors or a MOSFET. DRAM made up of a MOSFET and a capacitor. SRAM does not require refreshing. DRAM requires a refreshing. SRAM can be built with a low capacity as there are so many transistors in one single bit. It is having a less density. DRAM can be built up with a high capacity or high density as only one MOSFET and a capacitor is being used. SRAMs are more expensive, but whereas DRAM is less expensive. SRAM is fast in operation and typically access time is 10 nanoseconds. Data access time is 10 nanoseconds. Whereas a DRAM is a slow in operation due to a refresh requirements. So typically 60 nanoseconds are required. Then we will move on to another topic, sensors and actuators and input-output subsystems. So what are the sensors? Basically sensors are transducer devices that converts energy from one form to another for the purpose of measurement and control. So sensors are connected to input port of the embedded system. It is an input part of the embedded system. It is always connected to the input part. So any change in the outside world environment or in the variable that is converted into electrical signals and given as input data to the embedded system. Say for an example, Hall effect sensor placed in smart running shoes. So Adidas has developed one smart running shoe which was having an embedded system to see the cushion length. So the Hall effect sensor was used into that, which was measuring the distance between the magnet and a surface of the cushion. So actuators. Actuators are also a form of transducer devices which convert signals to corresponding physical actions or a motion for controlling purpose. So here actuators are connected to output port of an embedded system. That is, it is a output part of an embedded system. The system will produce some changes in the controlling variable to bring desired output through actuators. So say for an example, a micro stepper motor in the same smart running shoe is being put up to adjust the position of cushioning element. Then the input-output subsystems. So this facilitates the embedded system to interact with external world using input and output ports. So input and output subsystem is nothing but input and output ports that are enabling the embedded system to connect with some other external devices or external world. The sensors and actuators are connected to these ports, translates the information needed from by embedded systems. So which all are sensors and actuators are there, that we are going to see in the next slide. LED, so light emitting diode. Here LED is an output device or actuator, we can call it as, where it is used for visual indications. So it is used in any of the embedded system. So for an example, a device on indication will be shown by the LED, like a green LED for device on, red LED for device off, or battery low. So if suppose any embedded system is having one battery, and to show it as a battery low, the LED can be glown. For a battery charging also we can show it. In any of the mobile phones, when we connect a charger, then there will be an LED which is being turned on inside the mobile. So it is basically a PN junction diode that contains anode and cathode. So always like an anode is connected to positive terminal of the supply battery, and cathode is always connected to a negative terminal of the supply battery or a ground. In the below figure we can see that the current flowing through LED should be limited by a resistor connected in series with the supply. The LED is connected to processor in two ways. So processor, it is being interfaced with the processor or controller in two ways. A port pin of the controller is connected to anode. Then the cathode should be made ground. The LED will glow whenever a controller writes logic 1 on its port pin where the anode is connected. So this is logic high. Port pin is 1, the LED glows. Port pin is 0, the LED will not glow. The second point is where a port pin of a controller is connected to cathode and anode is connected to a supply pin. Now the LED glows when controller writes logic 0 on its port pin. That is, when port pin is 0, LED glows. When port pin is 1, LED turn off. So this is logic low level, low signal. Next we'll go for a 7-segment LED display. So basically this 7-segment display is used for to display alphanumerical characters. So it is an output device for displaying alphanumeric characters, and it contains 8 LED segments, where 7 segments are used for displaying a character and 1 segment is used for decimal point. The segment named from A to G in the figure on the top side right, in the figure we can see that the segments are named from A to G. These 7 segments are used for displaying a characters, and another segment DP used for decimal point. So how this is going to be interfaced with the processor? So there are 2 configurations with this 7 segment. First one is a common anode configuration. So here the port pins are connected, the controller port pins are connected to each cathode of device, and the anode is connected to power supply through a current limiting resistor. In the below figure left side we can see that a common anode configuration. So this is logic low output. And another configuration is common cathode configuration, whereas a port pins are connected to each anode of device and cathode is connected to the ground pin. So this is a logic high output. Then we'll go for an optocoupler. Optocoupler is a solid state device that isolates two parts of a circuit. That means it separates two parts of a circuit. So basically it's a combination of LED and phototransistor. So whenever the LEDs is exhibiting the light, emitting the light, then the phototransistor is activated. If LED is not emitting any light, then the phototransistor will be deactivated. So there will be no connection between the input and output interface parts. So both LED and phototransistors are made in a single package. It can be interfaced either at input side or output side. It suppresses interference in data communication. Basically, it is used for suppressing the interference in data communication, circuit isolation, a high voltage separation, and signal intensification. In the below figure, we can see that it illustrates the usage of optocoupler in input circuit and output circuit of an embedded system with a microcontroller as the system core. So here the input is being interfaced with the port pin of 8051, whereas in between an optocoupler IC-MCT2M is being used. So this is separating the input interface, input device and a microcontroller. Then the same another optocoupler is being used between the port pin and the output device, output interface. So this is basically used for suppressing interferences and high voltages. Relay. So relay is an electromechanical device. Relay is an electromechanical device. In an embedded application, the relay unit acts as a dynamic path selector. A dynamic path selector for signals and power. The relay unit contains a relay coil made up of insulated wire on a metal core and a metal armature with one or more contacts. In the below figure, we can see that there is a coil, there is a wire on a metal core, and that metal core is having one armature. So relay works on electromagnetic principle. When a voltage is applied to the relay coil, current flows through the coil, which in turn generates a magnetic field. So the magnetic field attracts the armature. The armature is now open or closed. This armature is being attracted by the coil. So the magnetic field attracts the armature core and moves the contact pin. The moment of the contact point changes the power or signal flow path. So basically it is being configured as three parts: single pole, single throw, normally open; single pole, single throw, normally closed; and single pole, double throw. So the single pole, single throw, either open or closed. For normally open, the first one, the circuit is normally open. Always it is open. And it becomes closed only when the relay is energized, only when we supply a voltage to the coil. Then it connects a circuit two parts of the circuit. For normally closed, the circuit is normally closed, always closed, and it becomes open when the relay is energized. For single pole double throw relay, there are two paths for information flow, and they are selected by energizing or de-energizing the relay. Piezo buzzer. Piezo buzzer is piezoelectric device for generation of audio indications. So it is a buzzer for to generate an audio indications in embedded applications. The buzzer contains piezoelectric diaphragm which produces audible sound in response to the voltage applied to it. So there are two types. One is a self-driving that generates predefined tone on applying voltage, and external driving which generates different tones based upon variable pulses of the voltage. So it is based upon the applied voltage. Next is push button switch. Here it is an input device. Push button switch comes in two configurations: push to make and push to break. In the push to make configuration, the switch is normally in the open state and it makes a circuit contact when it is pushed or pressed. In the push to break, the switch is normally in a closed state. Always it is in the closed state. So whenever we push or press, the circuit contact will be broken. So the push buttons is normally connected to port pin, and depending upon the way of interface, it can generate a high or low pulse as shown in the figures. So in the embedded applications, push button is generally used as a reset and start switch. A stepper motor. A stepper motor is an electromechanical device which generates discrete displacement or a motion in response to a DC electrical signal. So basically a stepper motor are widely used in a paper feed mechanism of a printer. So in a printer, a paper feed mechanism will be there, that is to extract the papers in the printer. In an industrial embedded applications, consumer electronics, and robotic control systems. Two types are there based upon the coil winding arrangements: unipolar and bipolar stepper motor. So unipolar stepper motor contains two windings per phase. In a single phase, there are two windings. We can see in the below figure. So this is a two windings per phase. AC and BD are having two windings in a single phase. The direction of rotation is clockwise or anti-clockwise. So the current in one direction flows through one coil and in the opposite direction flows through the other coil. So it is easy to shift the direction of rotation by just switching the terminals to which the coils are connected. A bipolar stepper motor contains single winding per phase, wherein unipolar two windings per phase. Here it is single winding per phase in all the shifts. So for reversing the motor rotation, the current flows through a windings is reversed dynamically. So unipolar is used in a low torque applications. On the other hand, a bipolar stepper motors are little complex to wire, as we have to use a current reversing H bridge in our drivers. The resulting is torque generated by motors are larger as compared to the unipolar motor. So there are three steps used to change the sequence of a coils to flow a current: full step, wave step, half step. So we'll go for a full step where we are going to generate a high torque. So in this step mode, both the phases are energized simultaneously. So the coils A, B, C, D are energized in the following order to generate a high torque. So in the step 1, coil A, coil B are energized. In the step 2, coil B and C are energized. In the step 3, C and D are energized. And in the step 4, D and A are energized. Keyboard or keypad matrix. So basically, a keyboard is an input device for user interfacing. And if the number of keys required is very limited, push button switches can be used and they can be directly interfaced to the port pins for reading purpose. For interfacing 16 keys in the direct interfacing technique, 16 port pins are required, whereas the matrix keyboard only 8 lines are required as shown in the below figure. So here 16 keys are arranged in rows and columns in the form of 4 columns and 4 row matrix, where we can get a 16 node points. So this is up to this section. In the next videos we'll go for next newer topics. Thank you.